All right, let's get started. Welcome back to day 10 of the 60 Days to Automate Challenge. And today is going to be a special one. So, you're going to be building your first sidekick. So today this week we've been working on automating your email, your calendar, some of the tasks in Airtable. We also learned yesterday how to do automated file management and how to have a centralized database of all of your different files. And today we're going to be building a basic assistant that brings this all together. Because our goal today is that we want to have a sidekick that can summarize our email, plan our week, create tasks, and find files easily for us. And today we're going to learn what sidekicks are and what tools are and how they're used. We're also going to build your very first tool. And we will be using a little bit of code today, but I'll get you through it. If you've never used or seen code before, there'll just be a few things that you have to change, but really just some copy and paste. And you can always download these resources so you don't have to edit them, or you can always download the resources at digitalatscale.com with a brand new blog coming out very soon for all of these. So first off, what are sidekicks? Well, basically, when you hear me say sidekicks are essentially agents. They can be task specific or they can be autonomous, but essentially they're kind of like your workers. You can chat with them, they can do particular items, and today we're going to be creating one called the Admin Sidekick. And really, at the end of the day, sidekicks and agents are very customizable. They're very versatile. They can be used in lots of different ways, as you're going to see today and throughout this course. And you can build them in the Sidekick Studio in Answer AI. And they do have advanced capabilities. So, for instance, we're going to see how they can use tools. And I'll go over what tools are here in just a second. But tools can essentially be used to retrieve data and take action on other applications that you may have already hooked up, and to be able to talk to N8N and Make.com workflows. So today our goal with our admin sidekick, and we're not going to be able to, it's kind of like hiring your very first admin, be able to do some of these things, but our goal ultimately, what the admin sidekick will be capable of by the end of this course will be organizing, prioritizing, and automating all of your responses for your email. Being able to just streamline your event scheduling, being able to ask it, being able to say, hey, help me book this time, move these things around, helping you to stay organized and on task. Being able to automatically generate tasks from your meetings or your emails or even voice memos. And also be able to help you find all of the different files across many different locations. So what are tools? So tools are essentially when you're using sidekicks, there's a lot of different types of tools. So there's tools to retrieve information. So for instance, go and grab this information from a database or a third party like your Google Calendar and get it for you. It could also be used to search for information inside of a PDF or inside of a larger data set. That's one way that they can be used. Another way is that they can take action. So for instance, they can actually schedule emails or set reminders for you or send things off. And I think this is where AI has really not lived up to its hype in the past, because you really couldn't give it, and still I like to approve a lot of the things that it does, but there's a lot of things that it can actually do now based off of your intent that are pretty amazing, like we're going to see today. So being able to take actions, create tasks, send emails, things like that, or create draft emails. They can also create images. We're going to see how we can create images using DALL-E and other AI models as well. And also they can be customized using different APIs with JavaScript, and you'll see that in this session today. And you can integrate it with Make and N8N for just a wide range of tools and workflows. So all the past workflows that we created in N8N, we're going to be able to create as tools that our admin assistant can do. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to split these up. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to work on the calendar. So if I go over here to, let me set this up. So imagine being able to come into Answer. You just click on your Admin Sidekick and you say, what does my calendar look like this week? And it's going out, it's grabbing all of my events from this week, and it's giving me just an update with links that I can go and click on and see any one of these different events. I can then ask questions about this, get the agenda. Pretty cool. But what if I could do that also with my email, my calendar, my task, and my files? Well, that's what we're going to learn today. So how do we do this? Well, if you remember from day 7, for automating our calendar, we created this workflow that went in, and when we clicked on this, it would get all of my calendar events from the digital at scale. We also learned you can also do before and after these types of things, but we're just getting all the events since I don't have that many on this calendar, but you definitely want to add, which we'll see here in just a minute. Then it aggregates all of this into one item, and then we were sending it to this LLM assistant. We were saying, you're an AI assistant that has access to the user's calendar, all the summary, give it to it, here you go. Well, that's great when it's very deterministic. But what if you wanted to use this and you just wanted to get the information as that is, and then send it back to an agent or a sidekick? Well, that's what I'm going to show you here. So I basically just created the same one. However, we created a webhook. So in order to create a webhook, you can simply just click on the plus button and click on the search for webhook and drag it over to here. And in here, you have two different URLs. You have a test URL and you have a production URL. And if you're not familiar with what a webhook is, essentially when someone goes to this URL, either an AI agent or inside of code, inside of, if you just go to it, then it will trigger this automation to run. And you can pass it information as well. You can also add authentication to it so you can protect it. So for instance, you wouldn't necessarily want maybe access to your calendar to be in a public URL. But for this, we're going to leave authentication off. When we start going more into the security and some of the future ones, we're going to lock this down a little bit and I'll go over that. But for the purposes of this, just know that we have a test URL and we have a production URL. And really the only difference between these two is that this would say whatever your domain is. So mine is digital at scale. You can see here, digitalatscale.app.n8n.cloud/webhook. However, the test URL just has -test. So how is this used? Because what this will do is when this is triggered, this will do the same thing. It'll get my calendar events, it'll aggregate it. Same thing we were doing for day 7 for summarizing the calendar. But instead of sending it to an LLM, we just want to send that raw what's in my calendar back to the agent. And we do that with a respond to webhook. So when you're setting up a webhook, one of the very first things that you'll need is configurations, and by default, it'll be set to immediately. We want to change this to using respond to webhook node. And what that's going to do is it's going to execute this, meaning it's going to go get all of our calendar events. It's going to aggregate it into one item, one giant list, and then it's going to then respond with that list. Now, how do I use this in test? Well, First, I need to go over to Answer AI. And if I go over on the left and I click on Tools, and by the way, all of these setups that you see in here can be done in Flowise as well. We use Flowise as the main backend for the Sidekick Studio. We're big supporters of them and their project, love what they're doing. So what we're going to be doing here is going in, and if we see here, we have this in the marketplace tools, this N8N webhook custom tool. Now I've already set up one of these called Get Calendar Availability. But if you want to create your own, just simply click on it. And you'll notice that this is read only at first. What you need to do is first say, use this template. And what you're going to do is, for this one, I'm going to actually, you would just give it a name. And we would then, let's say, N8N webhook new digital new. I'm just going to call it new for right now. We're going to change this later. I just want to show how you import it. You hit add. So now I have over here my N8N webhook new. Now there are multiple different ways that you can actually create tools. This being one of them, because if I want to actually test this tool, what I can do is after I've created it, go into it. So this is the one that's already been created for getting the calendar availability that's already been set up in Answer AI, so I can kind of show you how it works, and then we'll go through setting one up. So here you'll see you have a webhook URL, and if you click on the new one, you'll see that there's two areas. There's one for the production URL and there's one for the testing URL. They both have, and if you've never seen code before, these are what are called variables. And essentially what that means is whatever this value is, it's going to replace that down here. But what you need to know when you create a brand new one of these is when you create your new item, you simply go in here and you copy out the production URL and put that here in the first one that, with the comment that says production URL. So in between these two quotes, then go back over and say test URL. And this just makes it easier for testing, and you'll see why here in just a moment. So I'm going to save those, but I'm actually going to go to the one that's already been set up that already has these in here, because what I'm going to want to do is whichever one that I'm testing and using, so this one already is set up to use the production URL. I'm going to do what's called commenting it out. You can tell it's commented out because it went green by just putting 2 forward slashes in front of this line. And I'm going to uncomment out the testing URL. You can see that this is all one variable, const webhook URL equals, and then my testing one. And what this is going to do is it's going to grab a message, whatever the message is from the body. And the way that this is structured is that you have to define what can actually be passed to the webhook. So in this case, I'm actually sending over message. I'm saying this is the message to send, just something generic. And you can add new ones. So for instance, if I want to add a new, I can just click on the add item here, give it a name. Let's say today's, or let's just say today's date or start. And we're going to give it a date type and the starting date that the user wants to start with. So this is how you could actually create new ones. Now, if I wanted to use this, I could come down here and all I have to do is right underneath the body, so in between these brackets, next to message, I'm going to add a comma here. And then I'm going to go to the next line and then an open braces. And like I said, I'll have these downloadable for you to be able to use if you just want to import this and use it. But these are the only things that you actually have to change inside of this. Once you get this, we're going to do this a few times. You'll see how the pattern and how easy it is to change these. So I'm just going to say start date. And then here, I'm going to just put a $sign and whatever I named it here. I'm just naming it the same just for readability. If I had called this starting date, then I would call this starting date. This is how I'm going to send it and how it's going to be referenced in make or in N8N. And this is how it got sent. Now, how does it get sent into this tool? Well, that's the beauty of tool agents and sidekicks, which we'll see here in just a moment. But just for the purposes of this, I don't need to change anything. We have updated this webhook URL with the test one. We've given it a message and a start date. And I'm going to save this here. So under calendar availability, I have message, start date, and this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the chat flows area for this one. And I'm going to go into my Admin Sidekick. Now, an admin sidekick is essentially what we call a tool agent in Flowise. So like I said, sidekicks, agent, same thing. And if I look for this sidekick starter chat flow, as you can see here, it's a really basic one. If I want to use this as a new flow, I can also download this. It'll also be in the follow-up notes. And we'll be using that for the different items. So you could just say use as new flow. And what that's going to do is just go in here and have you start one, a new sidekick. Just simply choose the credentials. So in this case, if you've already set up your credentials, so for instance, we set up our credential, the digital at scale. If you haven't set one up and you want to use the AnswerAI one, by all means, go ahead. We're going to be using the latest model of 4.0 for this. And we see here that we have a drop down for selected tools. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say get calendar availability. So this is the tool that I just created and imported in this tools area. Now, what if I wanted to create other tools? Well, as I mentioned, there are many other tools in here as well. So what we have here is we have a whole area over on the left for tools. And one of my favorite is the Dolly post one. So if I want to have this be able to create images, and a sidekick can have up to 128 different tools, from retrieving knowledge, getting tools, all of these different pieces. So if I go in here and I just select my OpenAI credential, create a new one or use the AnswerAI one, and then here I'm going to change this to Dolly 3 instead of Dolly 2. And when I add this node, I just need to drag this to the tools. As I mentioned, you can have multiple tools. So now we have a new sidekick that can create images and one that can get my calendar availability. And I'm going to save this and I'm going to call this my Chief Sidekick. And you're going to see we're going to be building off of this Chief Sidekick throughout this course. And what I want to do is just kind of use it. So now that we have this, we go over here to the right, and up in the top right hand corner, you click on the green with a little chat bubble here. And I'm just going to expand it by clicking the little arrows that look like they're going out next to the clear chat. So this is your testing area in AnswerAI. So inside a Sidekick Studio, none of these chats are saved. It's really for you to be able to test, see when tools are used, be able to see what the output of those tools are, and things like that. So here, I'm going to go in here and first do something. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is see if the image tool is working. So create an image of a puppy. So now it's going through, it's kind of showing that it's using the tool right here, and then it's going and it will go and give you the image. Oh, look at that. Isn't that a cute puppy? So we now have a sidekick that can create an image. Now, what if we go in here and we want to, well, let's go in and let's say get calendar availability. So this is the tool we just set up, and I'm going to save this here. So now, one important thing is that up here, this little bubble, it says create Dolly image. You see this little gear. If I click on this, you can see the tool that was used you can see what the input was. So if you remember, we just set up where message and start date were our inputs. This tool just has an input for prompt. So a cute puppy sitting on a grassy field with fluffy fur and big expressive eyes, looking playful and happy under a clear blue sky. Exactly what it gave us. And then the output. This is what did it actually return? And this is the developer mode. This is just so that you can see, hey, this is so that you can debug your automations, like we're going to see here in a minute. So when you start getting information from tools like N8 and Make, you can actually see what was sent to it and then what was returned back. And we're going to see that now. So now if I say, what does my calendar look like this week? And I go like that and I click on that. So now saying it's unable to access my calendar directly. So that could be a few different reasons, and we'll see those here in just a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this chat just so that I can start with a brand new one. So the first thing that I want to check is under here, get calendar availability. So this is the tool name. Now, this is, you want to give it a descriptive name and always make it lowercase with underscores on it. That's kind of a good, you don't want to have any spaces, anything like that. Then a tool description. So this is, think of it as the instructions. So think of your training and intern. Hey, use this product if you need to get information about my calendar. Google Calendar. Use this tool if you need to get put information on my calendar. So this just gives information about when the sidekick or agent should be using this tool. You can even give it an icon if you want to. And then that's going to determine when to actually use it. Now, in this response, so let's just go ahead and write that again. What does my calendar look like this week? So it's looking like it's trying to use a tool, but it's not giving us that bubble up there. If you remember, that's how you can debug whether or not it's using a tool or not. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a look at this tool and see where is it going to first. So here I have this webhook test. So what I need to do is I'm going to actually go over here and see if this is the same. So here we have 7B21FA. Let's just check. 7B21FA. Absolutely. So we have that. But here it is. We're not listening for what is a test event. So I'm going to go ahead and listen for this test event. Now, what this is doing is N8N is now saying, I'm now listening for this event. It's not always listening for test events. So it kind of has an error when it tries to go there, or it's just like a bad URL, which is probably why it didn't work. So we're going to go back in, and now that we're listening for this, we're going to ask that same question. I don't even need to spell calendar. It's still not doing it. So let's take a look at the instructions and see what we have here. So these are default instructions for all of the different sidekicks. So here we're giving it information about what tools it has available for it to use. So in the instructions we're also, so as you can see here, our tool is called custom tool. So instead of using custom tool, we're actually going to use custom availability by just copying it out right here and going here. And I'm going to say start date. I'm going to say use this tool to get the user's calendar in. All right. So one other thing I forgot is to add. All right. So now let's add that one more time. Clear this out here by hitting that red eraser. Let's see here. Let's listen to. Let me do that. I'm going to say just at the end of this, use your calendar tool. I'm going to remove this start date and this right here just to remove variables from what I did. Let's try that again. Oh, there we go. All right. So as we can see here, we actually got the test event. So here you can see that the message was, please provide the calendar availability for this week. and the webhook URL. So there must have been something that I missed in the variables there. So we'll get back to that here in just a second. So we actually see our event firing. Now, what we can do, since we actually see this working, we can come in here and we can say test workflow. So this is going to either allow me to, if you remember, we had a form, that one popped up there too, but this should allow me to now go in here, and if I run this should be listening for the test event, and then this should run and return my availability. Let's see if that, let me refresh this. It will be saying they're waiting for it, so you may have to refresh there. All right, there we go. So as you can see, it's now getting that information. And if we go back over here, you can see we have one item that it received. It got the 5 items, it aggregated it, and then it sent back these. And if we look at, I don't know why it's running so slow. We look at this tool, we can actually see this is the message that it was sent, and this was the output of the tool with all of the events, so that here I can go in, I can click on the event and go directly to it. So we have our first tool. We now are able to run this, and yes, go back over and go back into our chief sidekick here. So we now have one that can get our email and summaries and check our availability and of all of our calendar events. It can also create images. Now what we're going to want to do is allow it to know, well, what day is it? Because it's getting all of your events. It's probably going to be a lot, especially if you have a calendar that's not brand new like this one. How do we do that? Well, if you ask any AI, well, not any model, I should say. Now, ChatGPT and other ones are from our first episode. We talked about what the difference between a chat AI app and an AI model is. Because if I say, what is the current date? So it tried to use the get calendar availability because it thought that was the most logical one. But at the end of the day, AI models, they have a cutoff date. So we have to give it some sort of tool in order to get the date. And I have one for that very reason. And that is, if we go into our tools, or let's just copy this one, the custom tool, and I'm going to select days, date, and time. I'm going to just connect that tools to there by just dragging that to the tools. So now we have 3 tools. Now let's go back in and update our tool usage. As you can see here, we have this already there that use this tool when you need to get the current date and time. So we now have the definition in there as well. And if we edit on this tool, we can see that this is this. The tool description as well says it. Now, why we have to put it in the system prompt and inside of this tool description, that's still TBD. I'm still playing around with that myself. I put it in both, just I found best that works the best, and I can give it a little bit more instructions in my, I can keep my tool descriptions a little generic so that I can use them across different sidekicks, and then have a much more detailed description of when that specific sidekick could use the tool. So for instance, in this one, I'm probably going to tell it to get the date and time first, then go and get the calendar availability, because you don't want it to try to go get the calendar availability. You don't want it to get at the same time. So we're going to play around with that. I may have to do it in 2 separate ones, but we'll try that. We'll try this for this. All right. So now when I ask that question, what is the current date? Current date is Monday the 4th, November 2024. Wait, what? It's November 3rd. Ah, it's Sydney. So let's go in here and let's update this. And this is where I can go in and just say Los Angeles. I'm not in Los Angeles. I'm just in its time zone. And we're going to change the locale to be good old US of A instead of Great Britain. So now when we go in and we say, what is the current date? Oh, there's a technical issue with the tool. Let's see. I probably do not have the right code. I probably need an underscore here. Is that right? Oh, it's America, Los Angeles, not Australia, Los Angeles. Let's ask that again. What is the current date and time? Oh, still appears to be a problem. Let's see here. All right, why is this? You can definitely tell I'm not from Los Angeles because I misspelled it. L-E-S. Okay, I bet you that was it. Try it one more time. There we go. All right. So you got to make sure that the time zone is correct. And in order to find that time zone, I'll put this in the resources because that's something you're probably going to come up against as well too, which is I don't know what the name of that format is. I'll put in the notes what type that is. There's a specific name for it, but basically in here, like on Wikipedia, you can go in and you can find out the list of TZ database time zones of all of them. So if you look at, America, Los Angeles, that's the one did. So you can just come in here, copy it for your time zone so that whatever chatbots you want the time zone to be in, you can find it. So I'll put this in the show notes as well for this Wikipedia article. So the list of database time zones. All right. Now that we have given it information around what time and what time zone it is, let's go in and let's give it. Now let's say, check my upcoming calendar. All right, from today. So as you can see here, it didn't have enough information. I was like, hey, so as we can see here, it's got the current date and time. And then it said it got the get current availability. But we got a 404 message here. So the requested webhook, click the test workflow button on the canvas and then try again. So as you can see here, you're given an error message if it does mess up and you forget to hit the test workflow. But we actually want to update this that it will use different tools. So what we're going to do is we're going to update it so that it'll get the current date and time and then pass that information into the other one. So we're going to do that by editing this tool. And we're going to, instead, we're not going to have message here. We're going to add this item and we're going to call it start date. And we're going to give it, we're just going to call it a string for right now. I think that was the problem, is because we were trying to call it a date and it's not technically a date in that. So the start date from which to get users availability. So basically we want to be able to pass in the start date. So down here, I'm just going to change, instead of message, start date. And I'm going to change this to whatever value I put here. Remember, this is the one that has to be the same value as this. This right here could be anything. I could call this Brad if I wanted to. It would just mean an innate in, it would have a variable called Bradley or Brad. So now that I save this, and I'm going to save this. Now remember, I need to go in here and we're going to test this item. So it's waiting for the trigger event. Now I'm going to say, check my upcoming calendar. So now it should go and get today's dates, and then it should send that date to innate in. Oh, no, it's not actually doing anything. Yeah, so here we have our web. See, it got one item. And we can see here that in our body, we got the start date of November 3rd, 2024. We're in business. So how do we now use this information in our workflow? Well, we have to go in and we are given right here. So now we're given the information of the webhook. So you get all the information about what it is, what time it was, if you ever needed to use any of this information. But if we scroll down here a little bit, we can also see that we have this start date. So this is where we can go in and we can now use this date to say, I want all items that are after, sorry, this is confusing. So they say before, so this is at least some part of the event must be before this time. So no, we are going to want to do after. That's right. So here we go, after, and we're going to, when we go in here, we can say date and time. So yeah, let's just do that. So we're going to do fix and time, because if we look at my calendar here, I just have things on from the 28th until the 1st. But if I go over here and I click on Sunday and I say, hey, it has to be over that, and I click on test step, it's giving me these 5 items. But if I choose today, which was what's going to be sent in, I don't have anything. So let's go ahead and add a calendar event. We have because this is, so quick is that if you remember, this is only getting the list digital at scale demo. So if you see other events, these are on different calendars. So for instance, this is on the holidays, which it's not a holiday. It's just the general election. We don't get it off. So now we go in here, and now that let's put in an event. So go vote. So I'm going to say this from 1 to 2, and then we'll just keep that. So now when we go in and we say test event, we now have the 1 event. But how do we make it so that we don't have to always, because it's always going to be from November 3rd. We want it to be whatever's passed in from that webhook. So instead of choosing this, we're going to move over here to expression. So if we go over here and we just go into start date, yes. So right here, it's given me a suggestion. It says to date time. And this says right here, if you look at the instructions, if we zoom in, that this converts the string to a lexicon date time. If you want more information about what that is, you can go here for doing different time zone dates, offsets, which are important with working with these. So we have to date time, and we're going to select that. What that does is it converts it into something that is going to be able to be used for the different by Google. Because if I just send it in as the way that it comes over in this format, 10/3/24, it's not really going to grab anything. So now if I test this step, great, it's working. Now if I go in and let's just save this and let's test this workflow, and now I'm going to clear this. I'm going to say, what does my week look like? As you can see, here's what's on your upcoming week. So it grabbed what the current date and time is. It then used that date and time to then pass it into this start date and what the upcoming week looks like. So now, what if I wanted to limit it? So for instance, if I only wanted to get, because if I go in and let's say for the following week, I say, let's see here, call my brother on Veterans Day because he's a vet, and that's not part of this week. So now if I go back over here and I say test workflow and I ask that same thing, well, here it was actually smart enough to know. It actually, if you see here, it returned call my brother in the output, meaning it actually did get it. But because this is one of the reasons why AI is better than these deterministic automations, is because even though it was given that I have an event to call my brother on the following week, it knew that what today's date and time was, and it knew to not use that and to only give me the information about that. Now, this is really helpful. So the way that I use this is, so go back before I'm going to go in and show you how you can add an end date. And by doing that, it's pretty easy. So we can go into our chat flow, which And we have the calendar availability and the day's date and time. Great. We have this. Now we're going to edit this and we're going to add another one. We're going to add end date. We're going to call it end date. We're going to give it a string and I'm going to say the end date from which to get the user's information. And then down here, I just have to do comma and then end date. And I'm going to save this item. Now, when I go in here, if you remember, so it actually went in and it said it was only passing the start date and it got back all of it. Now, if I go in and hit test workflow and I ask it, so as you can see, it kind of said what it was doing first and then, and this is kind of where you can actually tell your AI assistant, hey, do these things first. Oh, interesting. Look. So this one, it went and it gave me both of these. And this is why not, getting the data, because we saw in the last one, it knew the current week. So it just took it out of the response. But this time, it still had it in there because we haven't updated our workflow to account for the end date. But as you can see now, it's actually sending the end date, which, yeah, should not be because that's on the 11th. Okay. It should not have been put in there. So now that we have the end date coming in, and we can go over here, we can go back over to our innate in workflow, double click on the Google Calendar, get in events. So we have the after, and that's getting the start date. Now we're going to choose before. And now we're going to go over here, and now we have end date that we can just drag right into here and say dot to date time. So now it's only going to get items within that date time. So as we tested it, we now see it's only going to have the one. And now if I save this and I test this workflow and I ask that question again, getting the current date and time, it got that. That's it. It went and it got today's date and time. It then checked the calendar availability. It checked between now and the end date. And this time, it only has go vote next week. And I can go and I can click on this event. So with tools, you're really able to do amazing things. With that, next, what we're going to do is see if it can summarize our emails and see if there's anything important that we need to listen to. So let's do that. So if you remember from day 6, we created this email summary workflow where we would click on this information. We would click on this. We just ran it normally. It would get all of the messages in our inbox. It would aggregate all of the messages with just the internal date, the subject, who it was from, and a brief snippet. And it would then summarize all of those messages. And then we made it so that it would send a message. Well, I don't want to do that. I want it to actually get all of these messages and aggregate it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to say day 10. And I'll put all of these workflows in the day 10. I just wanted to show how it was similar to the ones that we've already done, with just slight little changes to them so that you can now use them as tools with inside of your Sidekicks. But there may be a use case where you want to just send it as an email to yourself. So it's just showing lots of different ways to do this. So we're going to say day 10 Sidekick tools. We're going to duplicate this. And now we're going to kind of go through here and just rehash what we just learned. So in order to do that, we're going to go in and we're going to give it a starting webhook. As you can see here, it gives us a unique ID. We're not going to have any authentication. And what we need to do here is choose the respond and use respond to webhook node. And that's all we need to do in here. Now we're going to connect that to here. Then it's going to trigger, it's going to get our messages, and then it's going to aggregate it. And then instead of sending it to this LLM chain, we're going to actually remove this. And instead of sending a message in the LLM chain, We can just remove these. We can just say respond to webhook node. And what we're going to be doing is just say respond with the first incoming item because it came from it. If you wanted to like things, if you wanted to respond with other data, things like that. But in this case, we just want to respond with whatever the first item is. So it just takes whatever that aggregate is and we hit save. So now what we need to do is we need to create our custom tool in AnswerAI to be able to use this. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to AnswerAI. And on the left, I'm going to create a brand new tool. I'm going to go into the marketplace and I'm going to copy this N8N custom tool one. And I'm going to say use template. So when you go in the marketplace tools tab, click on the N8N webhook custom tool and then use this template. So I'm going to change the tool name. So this tool name is going to be called Summarize or Email Summary. Useful for when you need to get the user's latest emails summaries. All right, so in this one, I'm not going to, I can say send the message, but we're not going to use it in it right now. We don't have to change anything in here except, remember, we have to add our production URL and our testing URL. So let's go back over here to N8N, click on our webhook. So the first tab is testing URL. So I'm just going to click on that to copy it. I'm going to pass the testing URL in here, in between these two quotes, next to the one that says testing URL, and then production URL here. Like I said, this is just easy for testing. You could just have one and just go back and change them back and forth. It's really up to your personal preference. I like having them in there so I don't have to go back to the thing. I can just, if I'm testing or if it's in production, just comment them out. Just make sure you switch it back. We're going to create like an actual N8N tool. Look for that soon. So right now we're sending it to the testing one. And that's all we need to do. So we just need to change the webhook URL, comment out the one that we're not using. In this case, it's the production one because we're going to be using testing. And right now we have message here, but we're not going to use it. We're just going to see if we can get this tool to work. So we click on add. And as you can see here, there's a bunch of other tools in the marketplace that we're going to be going over, like HubSpot contacts, make webhooks, just like we're doing in N8N, sending Slack messages, Discord, emails, Teams, scraping the web, sending stuff to Airtable, which we'll see here in just a second. So there's lots of different tools. Now I have our email summary tool. So now I'm just going to go back into our Chief Sidekick. And all I need to do in this is clone the custom tool or add it from the left underneath the tools nodes. You can either use the custom tool node by just dragging it into here, or I like to just clone it by clicking that, using the new tool, which is here. And then we just need to connect it to the tool agent. Click that. Now, before we get started, let's go into input parameters and let's also give it this. So email summary. Use this, you know what, tool to get the user's emails. All right, so now we have, and on this one, we're actually going to change this while I'm looking at it. So start date and end date. Now, like I said, these are very similar to what we're putting in the tool definition. I keep them separated, and I do want to get you in the habit of putting this in here because usually your tool will have generic, but this kind of gives onto the instructions for more advanced tool usage later. So I know it seems duplicative to do this, but get in the habit of defining the general tool purpose, but then also to how this specific sidekick will use it, because there may be other reasons why you want to get calendar availability, right? Or email summary outside of just telling me what it is. So that's why we're doing that here. All right. So we have here, we've now defined it, and we're going to hit save, and we're going to go here. and save it. So now has four tools, has the ability to create images, calendar, email, and today's date and time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and say, do I have any important emails I should respond to? So now it's going to go through here. Oh, as you can see here, it clicked the test workflow button on the canvas and try again. Forgot to hit the test workflow. Let's do that. Remember to always hit the test workflow. So we're going to click on this and we're going to ask that same question. All right. So it tested it. So why did it? Maybe I needed to save it. Let's try that again. Oh, here's another error message. So this webhook is not registered for post request. Did you mean to make a GET request? So when you're setting up these webhooks, this is a very important piece. And you can actually see this here. You see how it says GET right here? You want to actually make sure that you choose post whenever you're interacting with tools. The way that Answer AI works in the Sidekicks is it does what's called a post. That's just so that it can send additional information like images and files and stuff like that. But just make sure that we had it set as a GET, make sure you put it as a post. So I'll note that in the follow-up. That's why we do it live. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and test this. Oh, let's go ahead and save. Stop, test the workflow. And that's where these error messages here will be in the tool output, because if you do get an error message, it's helpful for you to debug this in here. So now let's ask it one more time. All right. Now, one of the things you may is that so it went in and it got here. So here are some important emails that you might want to respond to. All right, invoice and receipt. Your invoice for the client work. Your receipt from Anthropic. Security alert. Was granted access. If you do not, you should check this activity. And a Google verification code. There's credentials. Oh, there's some access issues. And all of these. So all of these are emails that we sent ourselves. But this is getting all of the information, because we actually click on this email summary. It's a lot of information because we're getting all of our emails. Luckily, this is a new account, so there wasn't that many, or else it would have blown up and shown me an error. So how do we limit it by the emails? I think where I'm going with this is we need to give it a start date and end date, just like we did for the calendar. So here we're going to go in and we're going to remove. We're just going to change this to start date. And we're going to say the starting date and to get emails from. And this all goes into the prompting as well, just as descriptive as you can. For these basic ones, it's going to get it. But when you put these in production, when you start using them, you'll see, it didn't get it that way. You have to be a little specific. This is where you'd go in and update these. So I'm going to go in and add another one, which is for end date. And I'm going to give it a type of string and give it that. And I'm going to say that these are actually required, just because, especially with email, you want to make sure that you're limiting it to a smaller area. And I'm actually going to call this to time. So I'm going to add just that. So if you remember, we called ours start date and end date. We're going to call this start time and date time and end date time. And date and time to get, because I'm going to want to do the last 24 hours or maybe like the last hour or something like that. All right, so there's one other thing that we need to update. Since we changed these parameter names, we need to actually change them down here. So I can just go down here and replace message with start date and time, and then end date time, and add the $sign there. All right, so now we have start end date time with it referencing those variables. So now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to test the workflow. I'm going to test this so that I can see them coming in. It'll still get all of my emails, but if I go into Answer AI and do I have any important emails I should respond to? So this is going through and it's grabbing this information. As you can see here, now it's now executed. It got 50 items. Now we have the start time and end time. And if I go into my Gmail here, I can now do the same thing I did for the calendar, which is I can say received after, and I'm going to say start time and end time. And I'm going to say add received before start time and end time. And now when I test this, I only have 2 items. So now when I run this, what should happen is that it should only show me the emails from today or from that time period. Are there any emails I need to respond to? Oh, before I do that, so I don't get yelled at, I have to open up the test workflow and let's do this. And it's getting today's date and time to ensure they check the most recent emails. Please hold for a moment. It got it. It's now querying it. It's now summarizing the emails, I think. Oh, so it said no data returned. Interesting. So here's an important thing. So notice how this is now blocked. It's still waiting for a response. Well, the way that N8N works is that if you don't get a response, it just stops. So let's see why it didn't respond. So first off, it tried to get from 10/3 until 10/3, whatever the current day. So basically the last 12 hours. Do I have any emails in the last 12 hours since midnight tonight? My guess is no, I have not. So let's go ahead and compose one. So from my other account, from my Hotmail account, let's sign in. I don't want to add that yet. I'm going to go over here to Outlook. All right. New mail, digital at scale demo. Help, I need to know if you are coming tonight. I need to book the tickets. Let me know if you are available. So now I'm going to send this. I'm going to say, send this over. And we now should have an inbound. Help, I need to know if you are coming tonight. So now if I refresh this and get the information, if you notice it did midnight tonight, that's what it chose since midnight tonight. Let's see what it quote unquote chooses this time. So I'm going to say testing workflow. I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to say if there are any emails that I need to respond to. Let's ask that question. So it's getting what the current time is. It's getting the summary. Help, I need to know if you're coming tonight. So here, I need to book chat. You might want to respond to this email as it seems time sensitive and requires your confirmation about attending an event tonight. And then, so if you notice, it's giving me other information because what it does, it got the current date and time. And for the email summary, what it did was it gave me, it actually did the last 2 days. So this is where you can control your agent or your sidekick to do what you want it to do. Because right now it's just making its best guess of what it thinks is the most recent. Is it 2 days? Is it just the last 4 hours? Is it whatever? So we're going to give it a little bit more instructions to clarify from the user what they mean. So here I'm going to go in, and this is why when I'm going to say start and end date time, ask the user how far back you should go. Days, weeks, in hours, or days. So let's see if that works. So email summary, we've given it that. We've said, hey, ask the user how far back before using. So now we're giving it, hey, clarify with the user before just making something up. And let's see how this agent responds. So we go here and we now, please let me know how far back I should go in your email history. example, the last few hours or days, just like, let's say just today. I don't even have to say 1 day, 2 days. I can just talk with it normally. Oh, got to hit test workflow. All right, let's try that again. Let's go here. And this is where I can just say try again. So you have an email from today that you may want to respond to. I need to book the tickets. You may want to check this email and respond if necessary. So now I can just quickly just have it scan my email. Hey, is there anything? I don't have to go in there and sift through a bunch of spam. I now have something that is going to clarify how long, how far back it only got back, since today. Let's say, and then I can just follow up. What about in the past 3 days? And here's where you can just ask and talk with your administrator. Again, got to start the workflow, and let's ask that again. What about in the last 3 days? So now it's going to go through here and it's going to go grab the emails from the last 3 days and make sense out of that. As you can see right up here, it already prioritized this. And this is where you can really give instructions to your tool agent. Here in additional parameters underneath the system message is that you can make this personal to you, how you want it to interact with you. All right. Now that we have created emails to summarize your emails, help plan your week, now let's do one of my favorite, which is creating tasks with tools. One of the things that I'm not very good at is creating Jira tickets or creating Airtable tickets or project management tickets, right? Also, too, when you're creating project management tickets, you want to have a sense of standardization and the different types of tickets that can be created. So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to create a tool that allows us to quickly just jot to-do tasks in our Airtable when we need it. So let's do that. So our chief sidekick now has the ability to summarize our emails, get our calendar availability, get the current date. It can create pretty images of puppies for us. So what we're going to do here before we go any further is I'm going to copy over from day 7 this webhook here. I'm going to put this in day 10. Here we go. All right. So that's one little trick there is you can simply just copy the information and then move it over here. Now, since we're moving it, I'm going to create another webhook, and I'm going to have to change this tool's URLs because I'm basically going to set this up and have it running so I don't have to keep hitting test workflow each time for the ones that we've already set up. So how do we do that? Well, we're going in and we're going to copy this and figure this out. We're going to choose post if you remember. So always make sure you choose post. And we're going to choose respond with the respond to webhook node. We're going to grab our test URL. Remember, this is going to be used for the calendar summary. So we're going to go into the calendar availability one, and we're going to swap out the two. So I'm going to say test URL. I'm going to swap it out for that one. And then I'm going to go back into N8N, grab the production URL, and swap that out. I'm also going to switch this, and this is where you get the, depending on what you're testing, I'm going to uncomment this out by just removing those 2 forward slashes and then comment this one out. So now I'm using the production URL on that. And now I'm also going to update the email summary, and I'm going to uncomment this one out, the production URL, and comment out the testing URL. That way I've already now have this, so now I can test this if I go back in and I now save it. Oh, no, here it is. Nope. Oh, here it is. All right. We're going to connect that webhook to there, and then we have our respond to webhook. Looks great. We're going to go ahead and save this. And now I'm going to turn this inactive to active. Just note that when you activate a workflow, that's when you start getting charged your execution. So if you actually put this into production, that's when you start getting charged. So if you're just using this to set up and just to test things out, you're never going to be charged those executions. So on save. But now, since this is active and I've now chosen all of the production ones, I should be able to, can you get my calendar? What's my calendar look like this? Cool. So I can now do that and I say, great, any emails I need to take a look at now? How far back would you like me to? Please specify the number of hours. Just today. As we can see, we have this here. Now, this is great. So now we can now conversate with it and we can just talk with it and get information about our email and our calendar. So now we want to set it up so that it will create tasks. So how do we do that? Well, next we're going to give it a create Airtable record tool. There's a couple different ways you can do this. So there is the create webhook tool, and I'll just show you this right here. So the only problem with this that I don't like is that this way does require you to put your access token in this, which I wouldn't recommend doing. And we have something coming up pretty soon to be able to connect this and use your Airtable credentials. So because of that, and we're not going to use this create Airtable record tool. Instead, we're going to create a tool inside of here and make sure that all of our tools are using webhooks, the same kind of flow for all of these different items. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create another webhook tool. So create a webhook, and we're going to give it a post, and we're going to say using a respond to webhook node. And we're going to then go in here and we're going to go in and we're going to clone and use this template, the N8N webhook custom tool. Say use template. And this one's going to be called create task or to do task. And this is going to say useful when you need to create a task in Airtable for the to-do list. And for here, we're going to give it a couple. So we're going to pull up our Airtable here. We're going to see which fields. So if you remember, we set up on one of the earlier days, day 8, I believe, we set up our Airtable where we have our tasks. So we're going to want to create our task, our description. We're not going to worry about who it's assigned to, but we do want to give it a start date and an end date. And we'll give it a status. So any ones that come in, we're going to give it a new status called new. And we're going to save this here so that any new items that come in will have that same item. You can then also connect it to different customers, priority based off of that information. But for right now, and for the purposes of this, we're just going to have it do our task, name, our description, and when we want it due by. Those are going to be the 3 that we want to put in here. So in order to do that, let's go back over to our tool. And we're going to say name. I'm going to say this is the brief summary of the task to be completed. I'm going to add another one, and we're going to call this description. And we're going to give this a string and a detailed description of the task to be completed based on the user's requirements. And we're going to add due date. And once again, we're going to make this a string. I know it's a little confusing on that. I need to look into why that's doing that. But we have due date, string, and a detailed description of the task to be completed. So this is going to be the date the user wants to complete the task by. So here I'm going to make description and name required, but I'm not going to make the due date required because maybe I just want to jot something down. I don't want it to always ask me for it, right? That's what we're going to do here is we're going to make this so it's not required so that if they do say when they want it, they can. If not, they don't have to worry about it. So now that we have our name, description, and due date, we're going to update them here. So we go name. So in the body object here, we have description. There we go. All right. Remember to always put dollar signs in front of the variables that you're passing in. In this case, it's name, description, and due date. As I mentioned, I just named them the exact same just for ease of use of knowing what they are when I see this in N8N. We have our name, description, and due date. And now we have our create to do task. I'm going to add this here. And I now see my create to do task. So now all I have to do, now that I've created this, I'm going to go into my Chief Sidekick and I'm going to click on the plus button, go to either custom tools and drag it over. But then again, you can also just clone it. But here I'm just going to select the new one that I just created, which was create to do task. Drag that over. So now we have a bunch of tools. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tools that this Chief Sidekick can do. So now, before we do that though, we now have to add our webhook production and testing URLs. So we go in here to N8N and to the webhook node, and we say webhook. We'll copy the testing one, put that in here. And we'll comment out the production one for right now, but we will put that in so that we can deploy that here as soon as we test this. So now we have our tool completely set up. So now if I go in and make sure I listen for the workflow. So now it's waiting for the trigger event. Now I'm going to say, create a to-do task for voting on Tuesday. So give me a brief summary, a detailed description, and the specific date for Tuesday. So it's this coming Tuesday, and I just need to go to the polling place. And this is where, so it's actually like when it is, all that good stuff. So now we're doing that, and I just gave it a little bit more. Seems to have been an error when trying to do it. So let's see here. Error, workflow could not be started. Why could the workflow not be started? Oh, I know why, because there's nothing connected to it. So let's add our respond to webhook node, and we're going to test this step. So we're just going to have it respond immediately with those details. So we're going to say test workflow. We're going to add it again. Try again. True again. All right. The to-do task for voting has been created. And here are some of the details. So this is one thing to point out, is that it went in and it gave it. So it said, great. It passed it in the name, the description, the due date, and the return was all of the headers. Basically, it returned it to itself, all the information that it got. So it assumes that it did it correctly. This is where you'd want to have your own error checking and things like that in it, but just don't assume that it just completed. So now we have this. Now let's go in here and see. As you can see, we now have this body, which now has the name, description, and due date. So now in order to get that, what we're going to do is we're going to insert this into our Airtable. So we just click on the little plus here between the webhook and the respond to webhook. And we're going to call this Airtable. And we're going to create or update a record. Now for this one, I'm going to create it in my business. And I'm going to choose the table for the to-do list, maybe, tasks. And here I'm going to map each column manually. So here I'm going to say the name is going to be right here for the task. Assignee, we're just going to remove so it doesn't try to do that. The description, we just drag description over to here. You can see it's actually pre-populating it with what was sent over. And then the due date, we're going to put here. And once again, I'm going to say dot to date time, so that converts it to an actual date and time for the user. And actually, we're just going to say whatever that due date is, because I think it is just the due date. I don't think they have times on that. I don't have. All right. So now we have this information. And then the status, we're going to go ahead and create it with a new status. And we're not going to worry about priority or customers or anything like that right now. So now if I test this step, we're going to say do. So ask assistant, when the date format is not compatible with what Airtable expects, you can try enabling the typecast option in the Airtable node. This option allows Airtable to automatically convert the provided value to the appropriate type. To enable typecast, open the Airtable node in your N8N, check. Look for the options section, check, and typecast. All right, excellent. Test step. Look at that. AI helps us get it done. Yep, that worked. Thanks, assistant. All right, so now we have this on here. That was a great response to that. So now if we go back over to here, vote on Tuesday, we're given an end date and a new. So now we can now just ask our assistant to just create tasks for us based off of what we want it to do. So that's pretty cool. So now what I'm going to do, so now that we have created that one, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to uncomment out the production URL and comment out the testing. So now that we've launched this, all right, we now have to-do tasks. Now let's just check this. Create a to-do task for voting on Tuesday. All right. Oh, it looks like it did not do it. All right. Let's see. I forgot to save it. Let's try that again. Get these out of here. Delete all these. And now we're going to ask our sidekick to create a to-do task for Tuesday, for voting on Tuesday. All right. There we go. So here it just went, you saw the first time it asked me to get the details, but this is where you can really make it, hey, anytime there's a to-do task, I always wanted to ask me what the action items are, what this are, maybe you just wanted to create it. This is where the instructions really come into place, because what it did was it went and it created this to-do task, and then we go over here, vote, task, remember to go to the polling station, cast your vote, and the end date, and it's new. So now I have a sidekick that I can quickly just look at my calendar, my email, and my to-do task. So we have one last one that we're going to work with, and that is our files. So now that we have one that emails, calendar, tasks, we're going to look at one that can actually look at the information that we did yesterday in day 9 for your files and use a tool that will get the information back about the summaries and the file location so that you can quickly link off to those files and find them. So once again, how do we do this? We're going to go in and we're going to go into N8N. And let's just name these real quick. We're going to call this is the one thing I forgot to mention is we did not go in here. So this is where you would also want to give it a little bit more information about, let's say, it's what do we call it? The name, description, and due date. And here I could give it more instructions. Always make sure you have the description. You can give it a little bit more instructions on what type of details, the summary, how you want the description to actually be in for you. This is once again where you can really instruct it. And we will throughout this course improve this prompt. And it'll get pretty long with all the different tools that it has. So we have our chief sidekick who now has access to all of these. So now we're going to create a brand new tool in here. I'm just going to start by adding another webhook, and we're going to give it a post. We're going to call this one search files, and we're going to give it an option of respond with a respond to webhook node, and then we're going to add the respond to webhook node, and so now that these two are connected, we're just going to open this up And we're going to go into the tools marketplace, choose the N8N webhook custom tool, use that template. We're going to call this one search files tool. When you need to search for files for the user. So a message about what we want to send. The only thing we're going to change here are the webhook URLs, so the production and testing. So we'll go back over here. We'll copy out our test URL, and we will put that here. And then we'll copy out our production URL, and we'll put that here. We'll comment out the production URL. So as you mentioned, you'll go through this a lot. You can see the pattern that's emerging here. It's just copy paste different ones. Not much else changes around this. Like I said, we're going to make a better tool for this. I'll probably have to recut this whole video when I do. But for right now, you can simply just do this. All right, so now we have our search files tool, and let's just now hook this up to our chief sidekick here. I'm just going to clone one of these, select my search for files, connect it to tool agent, hit save. So now we have a search tools one, and I'm just going to go ahead just so that it's in the instructions as well. I've added the tool usage here, so we now have a list of the tools that can be used and how it's going to be used, and all of this in our chief sidekick. So now, since we're going to be testing this, I need to put this into testing mode, and now this will be interesting to see what it comes back with, because it's going to basically just like an echo, because it's going to respond to itself. So do we have any customer support files? All right, so I've searched for customer, but it seems there was an issue retrieving them. Could you please check your file storage system or provide more specific details? So let's see what happened. So it gave a tool output. So it looks like the tool worked. Great. We came in here, customer support files, and we have our webhook. So now what we want to do is, just like we were upserting the record here, we're going to want to get our files from our documents. And we're just going to want to grab the document URL, the file name, and the summary, just so that we can quickly just see what's in there of the different pieces. So I'm going to go in here, and this has 2 transcripts from day 1 and day 2. Setting up a form and creating a PDF. But in order to do this one, we're just going to quickly just grab all of these. Now, if you have a ton of documents, this obviously won't work. We're going to go over more advanced, what are called RAG systems, retrieval augmented generation. I'll go over what all that is. But for the purposes of this demonstration and finding them, we're just going to grab it from Airtable. So that you can see the flexibility of this. So now that I have this, I am going to go back into N8N. I'm going to choose the plus here for this node, and I'm going to search for Airtable. And I'm going to say we're going to say search records. So here we have search for record, search base. We're going to choose my business. The table we're going to choose are documents. So if you leave empty, it's just going to return all of them. I'm going to leave empty for right here. We'll play around with the passing in the search term, but we'll see how that works, because that's where our tag cloud can really come into play. So return all, and then we have our options and then our sort. So for this one, I just want to go in and I just want to grab all of them. As you can see here, we just have the ID, the summary, the tag cloud, the doc URL, all of that. Now, what I can do here is I just want to return just a few output fields, because I just really need the summary of what's in the document, why it matters to me, the URL, and that's really it, or in the name. So let's go ahead and add those. So I'm going to choose the doc URL, the file name, and the summary. I don't really need the other pieces of that for it. So if I now click on test step, I now get just the summary, the doc URL, and the file name. Of course, you get the created time, and it's kind of the baseline stuff, but for this, we're getting just that in information. So now we have this. It should return us back our information. So let's go back on test workflow. And I'm going to ask, do we have any docs on how to create a chatbot? It's grabbing the information and look at that. I found a document related to automation and AI tools, which might be helpful for creating a chatbot. It's part of the 60 Days to Automate Challenge led by Bradley Taylor. And it covers the fundamentals of automation, including building auto-form systems and various tools. You can access this document using the following link. So if I click on this, I can now go here and I can easily get to my documents. So now in order to launch this, I can go back over to my sidekick, my chief sidekick, edit, and we're going to update search files, and we're going to now give it the public URL on this. So now we have an assistant that can summarize our emails, can look at our calendar for the week, can create to-do tasks for us, can search through our files. It's a pretty powerful assistant already. But what if we wanted to just have some quick buttons to be able to click on? Well, here we can now start to get it to work a little bit better by going over here and clicking on Start Prompts. What do I need to respond to any email, or what's my latest emails today? Or summarize my latest emails today. Help me plan my week. I want to create a task and I need help finding a file. So these are the different items that we just did. And if I click on this, and now when I open this with a new chat, I can simply just click on a button and let's say today. I would hope that since I said today, it would have got it, but it had me reaffirm. So now I can just go in here and I can do this. I can say, then using, like, oh, I need to book tickets, or let's actually a real world situation where I go in here, I'm going to create a new mail. I'm going to say digital at scale. Question about setting up a chatbot. Hey, I'm having issues with setting up my chatbot. Can you help me? So here we have this. We can now send it. And now when I go over to my sidekick, and I'm going to ask it a different question. Help me respond to my support tickets from the last 3 days. How we got here, we can say, great, I have my support tickets. I have these 2 in here. That question about setting up a chatbot, help, I need to know if you're coming tonight, and help getting work done in hybrid environments. So to respond to these emails, first go there. Help me respond to the first email with a document about how to set up a chatbot. Do we have any? So now I can go in, I can say, you might want to manually search files. The workflow must be active. I forgot to hit save. Let's try again. And as you can see here, saying thank you for reaching out. I understand you're having issues with setting up your chatbot. While I don't have a specific guide on the chatbot setup, I found a document that offers insights into automation and might help you. Here's a link. Let me know if you need more detailed information, and I can then just work through this. Once I set this up, if I added a tool for what we did in day 6 for creating a draft email, I could say, create this in my draft folder. This is how you get through to inbox 0. This is how you can get through all your administrative work and really give you more time to do the things that you really care and like. So today we have built a fully functional sidekick that can do your emails, your calendar, your tasks, search for files, write emails, and it's only day 10. this chief sidekick is only going to grow because starting tomorrow, we're going to be going into a 11 here, where we're going to be creating content creation automations. And these automations aren't meant to take away from creativity, far from it. They're actually meant to give you more time to spend being creative. I'm going to be giving a lot of tips on how to use it to enhance the creativity process, not take away from it, and how you can use AI as a sidekick, not as an agent, not as a replacement, but for a sidekick that can help you create really detailed personas for your target audience, so your message just resonates every single time. We're going into this place where it's not about having your company's brand voice or your brand voice. It's about what is the voice of the customer and being able to tell your message in the way that's most received. So we'll talk about persona-based content strategies tomorrow. Then we're going to be talking about writing blog posts. If you ever want to start a business or do anything, writing blogs is a great way to get started. We're going to talk about then how to productionize, creating those social media captions so that they resonate with the different audiences on the different platforms. Best practices for image generation and how I use it in my process. And then how you can curate this all together to create a weekly newsletter sidekick that can take all of your different information that you've written, social media posts, your blog posts, some images, and create different newsletters based off those personas. So just like these last few days, they're all going to be building off each other. We're going to be building these on top of our chief sidekick. So I'm excited to share you with that tomorrow. So with that, it was a pretty long one today, but I think the output of it is pretty awesome. So thank you everyone for joining us. Please visit us at digitalatscale.com to sign up for the community, where you get access to all of the tools that you can just import into your own AnswerAI account or your own Innate account. We'll also have workflows for make.com as well as Flowise as well up there, so that you can use these automations and tweak them to your own liking. So once again, thank you for joining me today, and have a great rest of your day.